Hello. So yesterday when Amy and I did our little video, she asked if I would do a solo today and talk about flag and the news in Clearwater and the situation with information being leaked out of flag. So I agreed that I would do that today. What I wasn't expecting was that I would be contacted by a whole new person, a whole new staff member today, and it has nothing to do with the other people, know nothing about the other people, and that person wanted to talk to me and tell me all about flag and what was happening there. So it's kind of weird to me because I've been in Clearwater for some years after I left Scientology, after I left the Sea Org, and I've never had contact with a Sea Org member. And now all of a sudden, I seem to have Sea Org members pouring out of the woodwork that want to talk to me. So, I mean, to me, it's kind of indicative of the whole subject that we're bringing up, which is flag is out of control and its security is out of control and they have a situation. Anyway, I mean, also can think I'm just making this up, but as I talk and tell you the things I know, they're going to realize that they really do have a situation. So that's the way it is. The thing about cults, it's all about information control. If you have a cult, then you have information control. It's very important to control information. And as the years have gone on in the Sea Org, I have seen the control of the information get more and more strict. And I'll give you an example. If you would have gone to Flag in the 80s or whatever, when I visited there the first time, they had a newspaper stand right outside the front doors of the Fort Harrison that had, the St. Pete Times or now the Tampa Bay Times newspapers in it. If you went downtown in Clearwater, you would see newspaper stands with newspapers in it. There's no newspaper stands anymore in front of the Fort Harrison. There's no newspaper stands in downtown Clearwater. All that stuff has been removed. That just one indication of information control. You had televisions at one time in the Sea Org that got taken away. It was told that, it was kind of like hypnotic to people, so they couldn't have TV. So all the TVs were collected and taken away. You have no radio. The radios weren't allowed to be in workspaces anymore. You weren't allowed to use restaurants anymore. You weren't allowed to walk between buildings anymore. Staff couldn't have their own cars anymore. I mean, what they were told, what the staff were told was that surveys were done of the public in Clearwater, and what came up was that the public had a real problem with the amount of traffic and with parking and all that kind of stuff. So in order to be better neighbors and fit in better, we were going to stop using cars so that we weren't adding to the traffic, we weren't using parking. Also, when they were going to make new buildings like the Superpower building, if they could tell the city that the people that were going to be in the Superpower building, both public and staff, had like little to no cars, so they wouldn't have to put a whole lot of parking, pay for a whole lot of parking to be built for those buildings. But it was just another way of, stripping down and controlling the staff that were there. Let's see. Oh, yeah. I mean, you got simple things like written communication. That's always been the case, but it's just another way of showing you information control. Every written communication, both in and out of the Sea Org, is side-checked. You can't get a letter to somebody inside the Sea Org without it first getting checked, to make sure it didn't bring in any information that they didn't want that person to have. They weren't sending in, a small telephone or something that they could use to aid their escape from the place or whatever. I mean, it's all controlled. So it's a problem for Scientology if information is leaking out, like to somebody like me. That's a problem. What's a bigger problem for them is if information is leaking in. They don't want the people on the inside to know what's really happening on the outside, or to find out the information that somebody like a general person, whether it was Scientologist or not a Scientologist, could find out if they were watching the blogs, if they were watching television, if they're reading newspapers, if they're reading magazines. That kind of information, when you're in the inside, you don't have no idea. I mean, even something like Lisa McPherson, that the whole death and that whole flap, the staff knew little to nothing about that. They were just told that it was some kind of attack by some ambulance-chasing lawyers and some trailer trash relatives that were trying to get money out of Scientology, and that we were innocent, and don't worry about it. You just keep working, and OSA will handle, that whole distraction. And I know people say, well, if you're a staff member now, what did you think about, the assaults, and what did you think about the way people were being fair gamed and all these terrible things that people are learning about watching the SP TV channels? And the truth is, the staff knew little to nothing about it. I mean, it's all that information is covered up. You're not allowed, if you do know something, you're not allowed to speak about it. You're not allowed to talk to other staff about it. It's all held down. It always amazed me that how little staff knew what other staff on the same base were doing. I mean, you can literally have somebody who works at the Fort Harrison Hotel that hasn't been in the sandcastle right down the street in years. You have a furniture mill that's like 1 mile down the street from the Fort Harrison that you have Sea Org members working in. And I would say over 95% of the Sea Org members in Clearwater have never seen the mill, have never gone there. It's everything, you're kept so busy, your head is kept down, you do what you need to do, you know what you need to know, and that's about it. You don't have time to look around, to walk around, to talk to people. If somebody is going to go off the base, they are told they're not allowed to talk to any other Sea Org members from other bases. You can't tell them what's happening at Flag if you go to Los Angeles. If you are from the international base, you will literally be interrogated on the e-meter to make sure that you didn't speak to anybody about anything that you know about at the international base. I mean, if they saw David Miscavige, beating somebody up or confining somebody, or that, that whole thing that was so, that information was so available at the international base, the other Sea Org units knew nothing about that stuff. They don't know about it to this day unless they've gotten on the outside and found out. But, I wasn't trying to tell these people this stuff. They've asked me point blank, like knowing that I'm declared a suppressive person, that I have a lot of experience in the Sea Org, that I've done the OT levels, this kind of stuff. I've got people from the inside asking me, what's the deal with all these different things that you guys know about from watching SPTV? And that's a problem for Scientology. I mean, it's probably a problem for me. It's probably for them. I'm kind of worried about these guys are going to be hunted for, like who is the leaks? Where is this information going to? How do they cut it off? I mean, OSA, it has to be jumping through its little butt right now to look for this stuff and try to sniff it out. I mean, Scientology has a whole little technology that they use to try to sniff this kind of stuff out and stop it. It's called rollback. Like if they found one person saying something that they didn't want to be said, they'll pull that person in, put them in an interrogation kind of situation with the e-meter and find out, okay, who told you, let's say it's like apples are bad. Okay, who told you apples are bad? And they would go, well, Joe told me that apples are bad. Okay. So they get the information on that. Then they pull Joe in and they say, Joe, who told you apples are bad? And then they continue to pull that along. He says, Harry told me. Good. Harry gets pulled in. Who told you? So they try to pull it back to the original person. And the whole thing that L. Ron Hubbard wrote up was that you were going to have basically bad people, spies, these kind of things that would try to leak false information and different things into the organization to try to upset it. So this was supposed to prevent the organization from being able to be upset, because you could just roll back and find where the person was the spy or whatever it was, the agent that was trying to upset the organization. Well, I'm not an agent. I mean, I just I didn't go there to tell somebody something. I had people contact me, and I'm just being honest. I'll tell them, I'll answer their questions for them and stuff like that. What's weird to me is that there's multiple people now contacting me. Why? Why did this start? I don't even know. I kind of feel like it gives me the heebie-jeebies a little bit on why this is happening. But I don't know. It is happening, and I don't know. Scientology, you're gonna have to sort this stuff out. It's I don't know. It's not my doings. It's your problem. So I'm alerting you to it, so you can thank me for that. And I don't want to give too much information about some of the things because I don't want to make it any easier for you guys to try to find out what staff are asking for help or trying to get information or whatever. But I will give enough information for the audience to have some more information about what's happening at Flag, so that, you know, if it's something they want to know about. And that's what I'm going to do at this point. All right. All right. First thing for me, when these people contact me, I'm interested from my view of what's happening with certain people that I knew when I worked there. You know, old friends, things like that. So while they're trying to get information from me, I'm trying to get some basic information from them. My information is basically what happened to certain individuals. Some of this information you guys already know, and it's old information, but some of it I'll say anyway for those who would be interested in it. This is like, I'm going to take up like specifically various staff at Flag. All right. First, I'll start with some people that worked at Flag for a long time that passed in recent years. If you're a Scientologist that worked there, you're familiar with the Flag land base. You may have known some of these people, and I'll let you know that these people have passed. David Paul, he had a heart attack, whatever, while sitting in his car. He's peacefully passed. That was Amy's first husband, by the way. Then you had Paul Kellerhouse, known as PK. He was the security chief at the Flag land base. He worked in security for me at INT, at the international base, way back in the early 80s. Anyway, he died. Marcus Carino, he died after leaving the Sea Org. He left behind his wife Fanny, who used to work for me in Treasury, and their three beautiful children. Peter Voganine, which, you know, a lot of people knew. He's a really great guy. He passed. Harvey Jakes, I'm sure most people know about that. He was the captain of the Flag Service Organization for many years. He was a Reg. He was disliked by a lot of staff, and he was disliked by a lot of public because he had a pretty rough attitude with people. And but anyway, he was a friend of mine, and he did pass. David Revelle, he was a long-term Sea Org member at the Flag land base. He was running the furniture mill for the last few years. He passed. David Revelle's wife, Christine Revelle, I'm told that she took over Treasury, running Treasury for the Flag Service Organization, and that she's kind of gone downhill ever since her husband died, and she doesn't have the best of health these days and stuff, but she's running Treasury and has been running Treasury for some time, is what I'm being told. Both Pat Sanders and Marcel, who have been working in Treasury for decades, are still working in Treasury. They worked for me when I was running Treasury there. Russell Meller and his wife April, both of them were born into Scientology. I think they might have both been born into the Sea Org, really. And they're still there. Russell worked for me in Treasury. He's a great guy, you know. I can't believe he's in his 40s now, still working at Flag. It's sad, actually. Bob Bolger, who worked in Treasury, and his wife, I mean, they've been around since St. Hill. I was kind of surprised that they're still kicking, but they're still kicking, and that's good for them. Tom Pope and Udo, who were working at the mill when I worked there almost 20 years ago, they're still working at the mill, making furniture and do whatever the heck they do over there, which is another amazing thing. Sonia Jakes, she was like the top reg of the universe. I'm told that she's in very poor health. She has like a restricted schedule. She'll still come in and do some work and help out a bit and stuff like that. But basically, she's pretty much physically restricted to the Hacienda Gardens and stuff, where the staff talk about those are the people that take care of the cats there. You know, the old people that they have a whole building now apparently at the Hacienda, where it's elderly Sea Org members that kind of putz around and feed the cats and stuff like that. Anyway, so Sonia's still helping out, but she's not the old Sonia anymore. Paul Miller, same thing, another registrar for years and years and years there. He's got poor health, doing restricted motion and work and stuff like that. Dave Foster, believe it or not, Dave Foster is still full-time scheduled, regging. The guy is like amazing. He's got to be 80 years old. He liked to run from the Hacienda all the way to work. He'd run home at night. He'd run home with a cigar in his mouth. That dude is still producing full-time at the Fort Harrison as a registrar collecting money. Let's see. Bobby in transport has been there for like, I don't know, since dinosaurs. He's still working in transport and doing his thing, taking care of those buses and the vans. Derwin, who was the plumber, he used to go to the hospital every once in a while because he would be so overworked and so exhausted. They'd have to take him to the hospital and try to like get this guy back on his feet. He's still there. I can't believe it. He's still there doing the plumbing. Oh, then you got Letty and Vic Fazio. They're still there. They've been there forever. Steve and Monique Kasaki, they're still there. They've been there forever. Lori Englehart, she used to be in charge of flag crew over the hotels and the restaurants and all that stuff. She's still there, but she now has like a lower post, less stress. She works in that little hotel across from the Sandcastle, and she's got some putz around job there to kind of, she must be, I don't know, 75 years old or something like that, Lori now. Anyway, so that's just kind of a rundown. I mean, these are the people I asked about because I knew them well and stuff like that. I was told about a lot of other people, but I don't know them, so it kind of goes in one ear and out the other ear. Lots of people that are from the Ukraine or from Russia or from Taiwan. I mean, I don't know these people. Their names don't stick in my head, and I don't really care what they're doing, to tell you the truth. Let's see. When I talk to the people that I'm talking to, I mean, they'll tell me about how crazy things were with the COVID lockdown and disaffecting and wiping things to the point where the finishes on the doorknobs and the metal railings, the brass railings and stuff were actually wearing off. It's just ridiculous amount of bullcrap in regards to that whole thing. I know there's been other guys that have talked in detail about that, including Aaron. His channel has talked about it, so I'm not really going to cover that. To me, the COVID thing is kind of behind us, hopefully, so I'm not going to go further into that, but I can tell you it did disrupt that base for years. And I don't know if it was just that Miscavige was so concerned about like germs and stuff, or like a germophobia kind of thing, or he was also using it as a way to control the staff. Like, you know, nobody can go any place off the base because the germs are going to get you, and that's a way that you can like control the information and control the staff. There's probably a bit of both, but anyway, that was quite a thing that these guys lived through. The big deal that's been happening at the Flag Land Base for the last year is once again another out-of-org trainee episode where all the different orgs are told that they need to send 5 staff members that can get trained up. And they're going to be a team. They're going to get trained on the organizational technology, like how do you run a company and all this kind of stuff. This has been done many, many times. It's always been a complete failure. These people are told that it's going to only take them 2 or 3 months. It usually takes them a year to a year and a half to get through the program. In the meantime, these staff members, they have to, when they're back home and they work at an organization, say it's Long Island organization, they have to provide their own food, their own housing, they have to have a side job and still hold a job within the organization itself. So when these guys think they're leaving for 2 months or 3 months, and they wind up going to flag for a year and a half, by the time they get home, I mean, everything has changed. They've lost any jobs they had. They've a lot of times they've lost their boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever was, they were living with or dealing with at the time. Life has changed, and they get home and they step into some kind of rundown organization that's making no money, giving no pay, or very little, and the stress level, they're expected to make the thing go like statistically straight up, because now they've had all this great training and stuff, and it's a lot of stress on these guys. And what happens is the whole thing blows up. These guys say, "Sayonara, I can't do this. I need to go make money for food. I need to pay rent." This organization, they get blamed because things aren't going right, so they must be suppressive people, they must be idiots, whatever. And these people are like, "Yeah, see ya." And usually within like a year of all these trained staff members returning to their organizations, the whole thing falls right back to where it was, and it's a complete dud. Well, Miscavige had a real brain fart this time on how this is all going to be different. And one of the things he's doing is, instead of these guys studying the green volumes that was go by division on what the policy is for each division, it's now packs. There's a packs of issues for each division, and that's what these guys are studying. And they don't just study it like you would normally study something in the Scientology way. Everybody's been taught forever. Is they have a whole new way of doing it. They go through 3 different times each part of the course. They study the materials 3 different ways. First, they go through, and there's a type of word clearing, checking for misunderstood words that they do on a meter, and it's called, I won't even get into the name of it because I don't want to give people confusion on that, but they go through a whole way of trying to look for words that they don't understand using the e-meter. It takes a long time, and it's slow, and so these people go through the course that way. Then they go back, circle through, and do the course again. This time, they're getting checked on their understanding of what they read, looking for any words they don't understand, even little words like, what does the word "the" mean? And if they hesitate at all, they got to look up all the definitions and derivation of the word "the," use it in sentences. Then they have to go back to the beginning of what they were reading, the issue that they were reading, and reread it again and get checked out again until they can pass it. It takes time, especially if you are a foreign student and English isn't your first language. It could take forever. It's like it's a big deal. Then they go back through the materials again for the 3rd time. And this time, the second time they're also doing what's called clay demonstrations to show that they can put into clay concepts that they're studying to show that they really have an understanding of what they're doing. So then they go through the 3rd time, and at that point they can just kind of what they call fast flow, which is they can just read it on their own, go through the whole thing, and feel like they got that. So that's how a lot of that training is being done. There's certain parts of it where they only go through 2 times instead of 3 times, but either way, it's very slow and long. And this is supposed to be one of the things that's going to handle the situation of why these teams always head back and fail, because they have misunderstood words. And in Scientology, the misunderstood word is this big villain that everybody is supposed to watch out for and find, and you almost got to live with a dictionary to make sure you know all the words, otherwise you're going to mess things up. All right, so then the other part of this thing is that these students are all being put through Superpower, right? There's a rundown where they do different steps that's supposed to help them do better in life. And one of the things is running around a pole up in the top of the Superpower building for 5 hours a day. And it's called the Cause Resurgence Program. We used to call it the running program. It started off running around a tree in the middle of the desert, believe it or not. anyway, these guys are doing that. So that's supposed to be another part of this great, idea from Miscavige on how it's going to not fail this time. The good part of that probably is these guys are getting some ordering. In order to do the Superpower rundowns, these guys have to have received, without getting into it, but basically Dianetic ordering up to a certain level. So they have to have received some ordering. And that's a big deal because a lot of these guys that are sent there have never had any ordering. Most of them are very, very new Scientologists, because you might have a place like Long Island, or maybe it has 15 staff. Management is forcing them, like beating them over the head to send 5 people. They have to send their command team. So who do they pick? Well, they're not going to pick the guys that are holding down the fort. They got to find 5 people. Any 5 people, they got to have 5 bodies. And they're going to find, 5 usually pretty green, pretty new Scientologists. They're going to tell them that they're going to get all kinds of superpower, and they're going to get, the most incredible training, organizational training, and, blah, blah, blah. And they blow all kinds of smoke up their butts, and they send these guys off. And so at least this way that these guys are getting some idea of what ordering is about, so they don't just go home with a head full of all this policy stuff they're going to pick up there, which, by the way, is not very good. I can tell you, I've done all that training. I can tell you, you waste a lot of time and effort running around in circles on trying to follow that policy. It's kind of like Dianetic's book, where it's L. Ron Hubbard puts all this extra Google Gop and unnecessary information and complexity, and to teach you how to do something that you can teach somebody in a couple hours to do. And that's kind of what a lot of this organizational stuff is. It's like he's written volumes of stuff that it doesn't work very good in the real world. That's what I would tell you. But anyway, that's what these people are told. They're sent there. These trainees are getting superpower. It's taken them so far about a year. These teams are training up. As a team of 5 completes, they're not being sent off until there's a whole bunch of these teams that are ready to fire back. They don't want just one team to fire back, and then you can't really see like a change in Scientology. The concept is they're going to train up a whole bunch of these 5-man teams. They're going to fire them all out together, and then somehow Scientology is going to somehow turn around and stop contracting and failing. I say good luck with that. I asked, I said, okay, so what do these teams do if they've already finished and they're ready to fire back, but they're going to still be there for 2, 3 or more months waiting for other teams to finish? And I was told that they're training on how to be auditors, so that they can have a little bit more experience with delivering, auditing, and using the e-meter and things like that, so that they can hold other posts, other jobs within the organization when they get back. All right, so we'll see. Anyway, so that's what's happening with that. That's kind of the big to-do at the Flag Land Base. Oh, another thing I thought was interesting. When I was there, like in the 90s, we had a lot of recruitment was coming out of places like Russia. And it actually became something that you weren't allowed to do anymore, because what we were told, nothing official was kind of put out on it, but what we were told was that so many of these guys coming over from Russia had connections to the KGB, to organized crime. They were kind of a rough crew. And so to handle that, it was made so that you couldn't recruit anybody from Russia. All right, so that went on for a pretty long time. So now I find out that a major recruit pool has been Russia again, and the Ukraine. Like, I'm told, like, there's hundreds of people from Russia and the Ukraine that have been recruited for Flag over the last few years. And I think, really? I mean, why did you change your stance on that? Are you that desperate for staff? And I guess that's probably the reason, because these guys, they come over, They think, okay, I'm going to the United States. That's fantastic. I'm going to, flag the top of Scientology. Everything's going to be great. But they come over, and what do they find out? They find out that they're going to work from morning to night doing some menial job, washing pots and pans, or vacuuming, or polishing brass, or cleaning glass, or all these kind of things. Gardening. And they're going to get very little pay. They're going to get little to no auditing, and they find out they have basically been lied to, and it's not good. These people get upset when that kind of stuff happens. I can tell you, because I've been there and dealt with these people before, and I remember. Some of these people would say to me, "This is worse than Russia. This is worse than communism." And I'd be like, say what? It wasn't totally real to me, but they say, yeah. Especially some of the older people that really grew up with it and stuff. They'd say, yeah, this is worse because I can't see my wife. I have no time. I can't see my family. I'm just, everybody's mean. I'm being really pushed hard to work all day long, doing, menial work. I have no freedoms. You can't go any place. You can't walk between buildings. You can't go down to the store. You got the beach just 3 miles away, but you'll probably never see the beach. And, so they get pretty upset about the situation. And then they got to try to figure out how the heck to get out of there. And I can tell you have a lot of disaffection at the Flag Land Base. You've brought these people in from Taiwan, from the Ukraine, from Russia, from a lot of these countries where the things are pretty rough there, and they don't have very much money, and their families are struggling with war and different scenes over there. And you've told them that everything was going to be real good for them, and now they find themselves in situations where they feel used, and that's kind of some of the stuff that's blowing back on me, that coming to me, what the heck, They want straight answers on what's going on. And I don't know. I think also you got to worry about countries like Russia and the Ukraine and Germany and Italy. I mean, places where those governments do not like Scientology. France, they don't like Scientology. They'll tell you straight up, they don't like it. They know what Scientology's done in the United States, infiltrating the United States government. Nobody's ever infiltrated the United States government like Scientology. Scientologists have been sent to prison for it. Mary Sue Hubbard was sent to prison for it. These other countries, they're not aware of that. They know that Scientology wants to basically take over the world. They want to take over governments. They do all kinds of crooked stuff. They do all kinds of illegal crap. They do all kinds of money manipulating stuff. I mean, Scientology is famous for that. And these governments are not unaware of that. And do you not think that they're going to not put people into Flag to find out and keep an eye on the place and find out what's going on? I mean, I'm sure I wasn't the only person the FBI ever asked to go undercover for them. You know what I'm saying? So if they ask me, how many people have they asked? How many people are at Flag right now that are actually working for the FBI or reporting back to the FBI? There's got to be many of them. And same thing with these other governments. There's got to be many of them. So I'm not telling you something you don't know. You might have ignored that. But I can tell you it's for real. And you guys got to be a little brain dead. I don't understand why you're bringing in hundreds of Ukrainians and Russians and all that. You're just asking for trouble. And, I'm not telling you something you don't know. But it might be something that nobody wants to talk about or confront or tell little Davy Miscavige about because, of course, nobody can tell this guy anything. He thinks everybody loves him. But here's the point. When he stands up there and he talks to the staff and the public, they have to clap and smile because there are people that are facing the audience to look for anybody who's not smiling and who's not clapping. Just like North Korea, they will be picked out and interrogated and dealt with if they're not clapping as long as they should as happy as they should, all this kind of stuff. And so Miscavige, he's sitting there. He literally has somebody backstage with a stopwatch. He wants to know how many seconds the applause went for. Literally. That's how crazy this stupid guy is. And he thinks everybody loves him. They don't love him. He's a little 5'0" guy who's living large. You know, he's living like a prince of some Arab country or something like that. And meanwhile, these people can hardly feed themselves. They're walking around with holes in their shoes and holes in their shirts, and they only own one shirt or two shirts or this kind of thing. You know, you don't think that they look at him and think, you know, this guy's, he's an asshole. You know, there's a lot of people that are there smiling, clapping, thinking this guy's an asshole, and he doesn't know that. But that is, I talk to people and they say, yeah. I mean, the old timers there, these guys are institutionalized. You got to realize a lot of what's holding Flag together these days is very old staff members. And these guys don't think they have a choice. They're just so used to doing the same in and out thing that they do. But at the same time, they see that, you know, the Key to Life course, the Life Orientation course, the St. Special Briefing course, the way they used to study, all these different things that were things that L. Ron Hubbard said you should never touch and mess with. They see it getting messed with all the time. They see their lives getting more and more and more restricted. It's almost impossible for these guys to get a day off anymore. Like I talked to these guys, they said, yeah, it's like, forget about getting your 3-week vacation that you would promise that you would get. Nobody's getting 3-week vacation. And then if you try to ask for a day off, usually what these guys are being told is they can have the morning off on Saturday, that the morning that they're supposed to clean their rooms, everybody cleans their rooms. Well, they don't have to be accounted for and stand in line in the parking lot before they clean their rooms. They can actually have that morning off. And this is their, you know, their big reward for their production. But they still have to be on post at the normal time on Saturday afternoon. By lunchtime, they need to be there, and afterwards, they need to be accounted for. So they're not really getting the day off. It's like a make-believe day off or something like that. So the old-timers, they don't know really what to do about it, but they know things are screwed up. And they hear different little rumors coming in about what happened up at the international base, about Miscavige's wife, Shelley, going missing, about his new girlfriend, whether or not they're married or not. I mean, all this kind of stuff is slowly leaking into Flag and slowly being talked and mumbled about amongst the old-timers. Just as a point, I was told that you can expect at least 300 of these old-timers will either be dead or watching the cats at the hacienda within the next 5 years, which is going to change that base considerably. Anyway, so I already told you how the new guys coming in from these countries get upset about the situation. And then I'm telling you how the old-timers are also upset about the situation. So what you have is a base with a lot of disaffected staff members on it, and people that are looking for answers on what the heck is going on. And that's why I guess I'm caught in the crosshairs of these people reaching out to me, because I'm somebody who's known at the base. I recently went downtown to find the brother of Sergio Oblinski, the guy who was a Sea Org member. As a kid, he had his 2 hands blown off and his eyeball blown out. And then he was kind of like dumped into the streets. Not kind of, he was dumped into the streets, and he was living homeless on the concrete ground outside the Scientology buildings where the Sea Org is and where his family was, and nobody would talk to him, nobody would help him. This went on for over 10 years. Recently, I guess a lot of you have seen the video of how the Aftermath Foundation, which is staffed by suppressive people, helped to get this guy back on his feet, get him all cleaned up, to get him new hands, to give him a new glass eye, to get him a high school diploma. Now he's looking like he's going to be going to college. I mean, if you haven't heard about this story or you haven't seen the video on that, look it up. I went downtown Clearwater because he has a brother, and he is living with his wife, with his in-laws and stuff downtown Clearwater. So I went down there to find them and let them know that Sergio is alive and that he's doing well, and to give them the good news. But to do that, I had to go walk around downtown. I had to go into a store that's a Scientology store called the One Stop Shop. There's Scientologists in there. People know me when I start walking around downtown. So I don't know, maybe that kind of shook things loose a little bit on these people contacting me or whatever. But yeah, that's the situation. And that's a little bit of news on some of the individuals there, a little bit of news on what the situation is, and what's new and exciting at the Flag Land Base. And I don't know how many more people are going to contact me as I get more information. I'll give you briefings once in a while. I mean, I could probably brief you on what they get briefed on at their Friday briefings, but I mean, that's how much that place is leaking out. Anyway, I hope you find it interesting, helpful, and that's it for right now. Okay, bye-bye.